Hey, what's up everybody? My name's Crypt13, and in today's video, we're going to be breaking down Ayaka's constellations. Without further ado, let's just go ahead and jump into her C1. Whenever Ayaka's normal or charged attacks deal cryo damage to opponents, then you're going to have a 50% chance of decreasing the cooldown on your E skill by 0.3 seconds, and there is a cooldown of 0.1 seconds for this effect to proc. So since Ayaka can freely infuse her normal attacks with cryo simply by dashing, this is a very easy effect to proc on her. So that means you'll be constantly decreasing the cooldown of your 10-second elemental skill, as long as, obviously, if you are using her normal and charged attacks. But since there is a 0.1 cooldown in between procs for this effect, this means that Ayaka's multi-hitting attacks won't all decrease the cooldown of your E skill by 0.3 seconds. So more specifically, the fourth hit of her normal attack combo is a triple hit, and her charged attack is also a triple hit. This means that if the damage instance happens too fast, you will not get the 0.3 cooldown reduction for all three hits. Eula had a very similar effect, but her attacks were relatively slow, so the double hits both counted towards adding stacks to her elemental burst. 0.1 seconds is equivalent to 6 frames if you play the game at 60 FPS, so this means that the damage instance has to happen within more than 6 frames of each other. So I slowed down the footage of her normal and charged attacks to see if the damage occurs within 6 frames of each other, and unfortunately the results were wildly inconsistent. The damage usually occurs on frame 0 for the first hit, 6 for the second, and 12 for the third, but sometimes the second hit can hit on frame 7, or frame 14, or 18 for the third hit, and in some rare cases the final hit can occur on frame 11. However, the animation of her sword is always consistently appearing on frame 0, 7, and 14. Since the description of her constellation says damage though, we have to go when the damage appears on the screen. So if your damage occurs on frame 7 or higher for the second hit, and frame 14 or higher for the third hit, then you can potentially get a cooldown reduction for all 3 of your hits if you win the 50% coin flip all 3 times, giving you 0.9 seconds cooldown reduction. A full combo has the potential to reduce your cooldown by 2.1 seconds, but on average, since it's only 50%, it's more like 1 second. Her charge attack is the same, 3 hits for a potential of 0.9 seconds, but on average you'll get 2 procs, or 1, so 0.3 or 0.6 seconds. The frames on her charge attack behaved pretty similarly to her fourth attack combo in that it occurred usually on frames 0, 6, and 12, but were sometimes inconsistent. Ayaka's C2, when she casts her elemental burst, she unleashes 2 smaller projectiles that deal 20% of the original's damage. So fun fact, these actually used to be called Soken Gates, but now they're called Frostflake Seki no To, or Blizzard Blade Seki no To. I personally like the name Soken Gate a little bit better, so I might be calling it that going forward. But anyway, so what exactly is 20% of the original projectile's damage? So at level 8, the cutting damage is around 179.68%. So if we take 20% of that, the smaller projectiles are going to deal 35.936 cutting damage. And then the bloom damage is 269.52%, and 20% of that is 53.904%. The gates kind of fan out as the distance increases, so in order to take advantage of this, you'll definitely want to pop your burst right in front of an enemy so that you can get all 3 gates to hit them. And this is most definitely going to be affected by the enemy's size, so smaller enemies might not be getting hit by all 3, but definitely larger enemies certainly will. So originally, without her C2, the max damage scaling for her elemental burst is somewhere around 3,800% scaling if all of the cutting damage and bloom hits an enemy. Her C2 increases that scaling to around 5,240% if all 3 projectiles hit their mark. If only the main one and 1 extra projectile hit, then it hits for around 4,520% instead. Ayaka's C4 is when she deals damage to opponents with her elemental burst, their defense is going to be decreased by 30% for 6 seconds. And so the actual damage increase that you'll see is not truly 30% more damage, but more around the 16 to 18% range, depending on your level and the enemy's level, because defense is largely calculated around the difference in level between you and the enemy. And remember that our elemental burst lasts around 5 seconds, so the debuff is constantly being applied to the enemy each time they get hit by the slashing or the blooming damage. And so by the end of this, the total duration for her C4 is probably going to last around 11 seconds. Ayaka's 6th and final constellation is the Dance of Suigetsu, and this allows Ayaka to gain a very particular buff every 10 seconds, which increases her charged attack damage by 298%. This buff gets cleared 0.5 seconds after Ayaka's charged attack hits an opponent, after which the timer for the ability is going to restart. So this one can get a little bit confusing, but let me try my best to break it down. So first off, for those of you who might be wondering whether or not this might be using a stack system, meaning that maybe you could wait 20 seconds so that you could get a 600% damage bonus to her charge attacks, well, unfortunately, no, I don't think that's the case. We can kind of infer from the description when it says that the timer is going to restart again. You actually need to use the buff before the 10-second timer starts up again to get the 298% buff. So basically, we can't wait 20 seconds to get 596% bonus because the timer doesn't restart until we actually use a charged attack. So it's basically a one-time buff until you use it, and then you have to wait another 10 seconds before you can get the buff again. It also says that the effects are removed 0.5 seconds after a charged attack hits an opponent, so this definitely means that all 3 hits of our charged attack will have the 298% buff. So that's going to be a lot of damage. It basically means that we give 298% damage bonus to each singular hit of her charged attack. The description of this constellation also does not specify whether or not Ayaka needs to be on the field. So this is definitely another thing to think about. If it doesn't require her to be on the field, then this constellation is stupidly strong. The damage bonus for this is also additive and not multiplicative. If it was multiplicative, it would have been a lot stronger. And so since I was curious, I decided to compare how much damage difference we would have gotten if her multiplier was actually multiplicative instead of additive. So here is a quick visualization of the difference between an additive multiplier and a multiplicative multiplier. So the red is what we have now, and the yellow is who she told you not to worry about. The C6 increases her charge attack by about double, a little bit over double, but if it was multiplicative, we would have truly gotten triple the amount of damage on our charged attacks. So do I think Ayaka's constellations are worth it? Well, to be honest, I don't think so. Her C1 is not that great. Just because of the fact that we have to leave this up to RNG is already pretty terrible, and even if we win all of our coin flips, it's only a maximum of about 2 seconds cooldown reduction per combo. And then in regards to her C2, I think that her elemental burst already does tons of damage, so it honestly seems like overkill. I don't think you need more damage on your elemental burst. But hey, if you want more damage on your burst, then go for it. And then for her C4 and C6, it's straight up just more damage. So yeah, C4 and C6 are pretty good, but I wouldn't personally go for C1 or C2. I would instead go for her weapon, or go for C4. Alright, that's the end of the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you made it this far, thank you. And if you liked what you saw, then leave a like, leave a comment, and maybe subscribe to the channel. And until next time, I will see you guys later.